However, once again, and even though I agree with Job being in actual history, that does not mean that the book itself wasn't written metaphorically. Think about that. For the language of the text actually declares it. I'm not meaning the natural Hebrew language with my words here, what I'm saying, but I'm speaking of a spiritual Hebrew, that is in biblical metaphors, of which topic, spiritual Hebrew, I speak on at length in my book. In the beginning, it was spiritual from the very start. An interesting conversation that. This should also dictate that what's being expressed therein doesn't have to be similar to Greek mythology imagery also, even when God is in conversation with Satan in there, as if Satan's an actual being. But again, if written in parables, how can we really see this conversation? I turn our steps once more to the scriptures, necessarily, of course. Job 1:6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also amongst them. We have to, once again, ask what this verse means. For like a lot of other passages in the Bible, it's a bit obscure in its complete explanation with this simple, quick read-through. With our examples of Jesus' own teaching methods, his parables, his proverbs, we have to see a parallel here with Job's own story. Whereas I believe it, the conversation between Job and his three friends, was strictly a conversation without anything fantastical being portrayed. To be literally seen, that is, even though their conversations were indeed metaphoric in nature. See Job 27:1 and Job 29:1. But the first couple of chapters of Job were very oddly structured, heavily metaphoric. When Jesus taught a lesson in his parables about very real things, he used imagery that wasn't literally real. Now let's take, for example, of when he spoke against the religious leaders of his own day. He used non-realistic imagery to express something very real, something that was actually happening. For example, let's go to Matthew 21:33 through 40. This is Jesus talking. Here, another parable. There was a certain householder which planted a vineyard and hedged it round about, digged a winepress in it, built a tower, let it out to a husbandman, and went into a far country. And when the time of the fruit drew near, he sent his servants to the husbandmen, that they might receive the fruits of it. And the husbandman took his servants, and beat one of them, and killed another, and stoned another. Again, he sent other servants more than the first, and they did unto them likewise. But last of all, he sent unto them his own son, saying, They will reverence my son. But when the husbandmen saw the son, they said amongst themselves, Hey, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him. Let's seize on his inheritance. They caught him, they cast him out of the vineyard, and they slew him. When the Lord therefore of the vineyard comes, what will he do unto those husbandmen? Now at first the religious leaders of whom he was addressing, they didn't quite catch on to what he was meaning, which really he was talking about them, the husbandmen in question, of who wanted to kill the heir, Jesus, of the householder, the father. So Jesus said a bit further to them, and then they finally caught on. Matthew 21:41 through 45. They, the chief priests and the elders, answering his question, said unto him, Well, he will miserably destroy those wicked men, and let out his vineyard unto other husbandmen, which shall render him the fruits of their seasons. Jesus said to them, Did you never read in the scriptures, the stone which the builders rejected? He's talking about himself again. The same has become the head of the corner. This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore say I unto you, the kingdom of God shall be taken away from you, and given to a nation bringing forth the fruits thereof. And whosoever shall fall on this stone shall be broken. But on whomsoever it shall fall, it will grind them to powder. And when the chief priests and the Pharisees, they heard that parable, they finally perceived that he was talking about them. Now, what's to be said of all this? Clearly, Jesus was talking of those Jewish priests and elders of that day and time, and of what they were doing evilly to the people of God, and of what they were doing in turn to God himself. But he told it in story form that was not technically true, but was nonetheless true anyway. For instance, the religious leaders didn't really nor literally tend a natural vineyard, nor a natural wine press, or an actual tower that sat around it. Neither did the chief priests, as it says in Jesus' dialogue, actually say those exact words. This is the heir. Come, let us kill him. Let's seize on his inheritance. But in their hearts, they did say similar things, though, and God heard it. This is exactly how I'm seeing the conversation between Satan and God in the book of Job. Not an actual conversation of sorts, with the actual dialogue that it showed, but of somebody's heart amongst the human sons of God who had gathered in God's name and who were judging both God and Job with it. Not only their own hearts, but in private conversations amongst a few who were sharing in those thoughts, just exactly like the religious leaders of Jesus' day did against him. Matthew 12:14, also seen in Mark 3:6 and Mark 11:18. Then the Pharisees went out and held counsel against him, against Jesus, how they might destroy him. When we consider Job historically, we should see him as a very great man in the land of Uz. Job 1:3. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 she-donkeys, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the East. Wow. Not only, but as verse 1 says, he was perfect and upright and one that feared God and eschewed evil. However, and apparently, with how the story flows, he still lacked and was found unbalanced and wanting in the eyes of God. Hence his rebuke at the end of the book, starting with chapter 38. But with how great of a man Job was, surely we should see that jealousy of his position and wealth would arise in the hearts of other people. It's only natural. So it did in the hearts of his three enemies who acted like they were Job's friends, but who really wanted to see the humbling of that great man. The sons of God, human children of God, still gather together today to worship God, just as they did in Job's day. And I don't see anything significant about the sons of God gathering in verse 6 as to being anything fantastical, such as the gathering of angels and of the bad boy Satan sneaking up in the midst of them. But I do see Satan being there in the hearts of some of the gatherers, not as in being an outside influence which is tricking the hearts of some, but as I've already discussed, as to being the heart of man itself, and of being in opposition and adversary to something that is trying to oppose. In the case of Job, Satan was the three friends, the three enemies of Job. Did you hear that? Job 2:11. Now when Job's three friends heard all of this evil that was come upon him, they came every one from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. For they had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him. But again, they didn't really come to mourn or comfort him, but instead they antagonized him. Job 4:8. Here's the words of Eliphaz the Temanite toward Job. Even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and who sow wickedness, they reap the same. Insinuating that Job's wickedness brought that misery upon himself. How is that comforting? Let's see Job 11:3-6, the words of Zophar the Naamathite toward Job. Should your lies make men hold their peace? And when you mock, shall no man make you ashamed? For you have said, oh, my doctrine is pure, and I'm clean in your eyes. Talking about God, clean in God's eyes. But oh, that God would just speak and open his lips against you, and that he would show you the secrets of wisdom, that they are double to that which is. Know therefore that God exacts on you less than your iniquity deserves. Ugh. Even if it may seem a little shocking that I've already revealed my hand already so quickly to name Job's three supposed friends as the Satan in this story, it should not really come as any surprise, really, to the reader, though. It shouldn't come as a surprise. For my words were already building up to this conclusion in this book. I mean, especially if you've been keeping up with me up until this point, shouldn't be surprised. Even if many can see Satan working in those men's hearts because of their cruel words, kick a man down, will you? It surely must stop there, as some say, because these are three men and did not display the entire nature of Satan. So many continue to point out that they cannot be the Satan of that book.